Hello, everyone. My name is Gjertson, and I want to extend a warm welcome to you as you join us on the very first episode of the RPD podcast. On this show, we are going to be exploring a wide variety of different best practices and strategies that you can implement in your business. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Mr. Kyle Swain. Kyle graduated from Indiana University and has over a decade of experience in customer service in a wide variety of different industries. I had the privilege of working together with Kyle in the aerospace industry, managing hundreds of different accounts together, and I'm confident that we will learn a lot from him and his expertise and experience within the customer service industry. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you on today.
Yes, thank you for having me today, Ian.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into the first question. What would you recommend to a company that wants to build trust and rapport with their customers?
Yeah, and trust is a big thing. It's going to be the lifeblood of any business. And it's a lot about setting expectations and whatever satisfying that niche that your company strives for. So if it's manufacturing, whether it's turnaround time, if it's software, if it's uptime and speed of the software, or if it's retail, for example, with the availability of products and its price. It's meeting that need each and every time so that customers expect that consistency and addressing any shortcomings or concerns upfront before they can even occur.
That's very good, Kyle. I agree. I think building those strong relationships with your customers, really investing the time and effort into making sure that you're on good grounds with them is very important. One thing that we like to encourage our customer service reps here at RPD is visiting customers or doing a quick call to check in on them, just to make sure that they know that you care about the relationship and that it's still strong and that you're doing everything that you can to make sure that they do trust you and that you are in good standings with them. So that's very good. What strategies do you recommend for personalizing the customer service experience and to make each interaction feel unique?
Absolutely. And this is something that a lot of companies can do. A lot of it's about remembering the small details, both business and personal. In the customer service world, there's oftentimes a lot going on. And quite frankly, the customers tend to have a lot going on too. So if you can actually remember some of the small details of conversations you've had to make the conversation feel real, human, and unique, it can go a long way to building that rapport with your customers. And one way to do this too is to celebrate the wins that you've had with your customers, as well as talk about some common things that you might suggest or guide your customer based upon what you've seen with other customers in your industry. So it could be, hey, we see a lot of customers in the retail industry going with this software package versus this one, and they've been able to drive a lot of value and benefit. That's something that we may want to explore further. But by taking that individualized package with your customer, they really feel like they're valued with you as a business.
I would like to share a quick example of how we try to do that at RPD. We use Epicor Profit 21 as our ERP system. And this window is called contact maintenance. It's essentially the window that we use to maintain contact information for each of our customer accounts. I'm going to pull up a quick example. This is a project engineer that both of us know. His name's Xavier Miranda. And this is kind of the overview of his contact information. And right here in this section of the window, this contact information tab, we have a comments text box. And this comments text box, when one brings up the account and contact inquiry, everything here will pop up there, right? So if you wanted to maintain a list of cool notes and information about the specific contact, you could do it this way. So for example, we have that Xavier graduated from Purdue University. He's passionate about health and fitness. And then we have his hobbies listed here as well. So if I were to, for example, call Xavier real quick about a project that we're working on together, one way I could personalize that interaction is maybe follow up on some of the things that he himself is interested in. So for example, if he recently went on a hiking trip and I knew about it, I could ask how it went. Or if I didn't know anything he was really up to, I could ask him if he's read any good books recently too. So just a quick example of how you can incorporate like quick notes about specific people to personalize those interactions. Additionally, in P21, we have this personal info tab on the bottom half of the screen. We have their birthday and work anniversary listed. I've left these blank for his privacy, but you can actually customize these fields as well. So if you wanted to incorporate different fields in this window, you can do it through this tab as well. So that's something that we try to encourage at RPD, and it's something that perhaps maybe some of the viewers watching could incorporate as well.
It's a great example, Ian.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Are there any cultural or regional differences that companies should consider when tailoring their customer service approach for a global audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Expectations of customers can vary from place to place, depending on whether it's a different hemisphere, different country, et cetera, et cetera. And you may find that what may feel rude in the United States may actually be quite commonplace in a different country, and vice versa. What may be commonplace in a different country may feel rather rude in the United States. It's something that you have to be aware of, so that way you understand where the customer is coming from and not feel like it's going in a different direction than what it actually is. And you have to keep this in mind, especially if they have a different language proficiency. So that way you can actually know where the customer is coming from and keep it going and make sure that you have an accurate assessment of the customer's temperature when you have that interaction.
Very good. Yeah, that's very good. I know as technology's evolved throughout the past, 100 years or so, we've become more and more a global market. And I think we're going to continue to head that way as we go further into the future. And I think understanding those cultural differences between direct communication and indirect communication is extremely important. So I know for certain cultures like Germany, for example, they're very direct in their communication. And often they, like you said, they kind of view chit chat and maybe small talk as a waste, not necessarily a waste of time, but it just really depends on the context, right? And so you transition that from like a culture like Mexico. I was there earlier this year on a business trip, and it's actually quite the opposite, where they do really want to get to know you. They want to talk about more informalities than maybe other cultures would. And so it's just funny because we deal with customers from all over the world, and some of them are in Asia, and some of them are in Europe, and some of them are in Central and South America. And it's just funny seeing all the differences. But I think really educating yourself on the differences so you can be as respectful to them as possible, I think is extremely important. So I agree with you. Customer feedback is crucial to any organization. How can companies collect, analyze, and act upon customer feedback to continuously improve their service quality?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the common ways to do this, of course, are routine surveys, taking stock of what your customer service team is saying with their interactions with the customers. Obviously, Net Promoter Score is extremely popular in the industry. And those are just very common ways to get feedback from your customers. Typically, how companies will break that down is they put these responses into different categories, and they look to see what the common themes are. And then they see what's going to be the easiest for them to tackle, what's going to have the biggest impact on the customer experience in order to improve the service or the product for the customer. A couple things to keep in mind, though, is that when you do this, don't make it too onerous. The customer in this scenario is actually working for you. Don't make it a chore in order to fill out these forms or surveys. The second thing is don't do this too frequently. That could actually color the customer experience in a bad way if you're sending surveys every day asking for feedback for the interaction or service or product.
Speaking of customer surveys, I'd like to go ahead and showcase what our annual customer survey looks like. So this is our customer satisfaction survey that we send out every year. We've sent it out every year for many, many years. And this past year was our first year that we went ahead and digitized it into the survey format that people could just fill out electronically and submit it with this button down here. So you can see it's one page. It's about, if you don't count the contact information, it's about 8 questions or 7 questions in one text box. But essentially, it allows people to put in their company name, their name, email address. You've got the NPS that you mentioned right here on a scale from 1 to 10, right? And they can go ahead and select it from the dropdown. And then from here, we just ask the customer to evaluate RPD based on the following metrics. So product quality, delivery times, pricing, customer service, convenience, and how likely they would purchase products from us again, how easy it was to find what they were looking for. And then this text box, it's any additional information or suggestions that they would like to provide to RPD. So once they fill it out, they can just hit the submit button, and then it's stored in our document management system. So that works really well for us. And I will say, Customers respect when you ask for their feedback. I think it's another way, as we refer to back to question one about building trust and rapport. I think that's another way to do that. I think especially when you can thank them and implement any changes that they suggest. And then I would also say if you get customer surveys that have exceptional feedback about your company and very positive feedback, you could potentially turn that into a customer testimonial as long as the customer consents and is okay with it. Next question. What are some of the most memorable and effective customer service strategies that you've come across?
Yeah, one of my favorite ones that I've utilized in the past few years is what I affectionately refer to as a non-update update. Because I find that when something happens with a customer, if they have a concern or if there's something they're particularly upset about, they want to know that what they have is working its way through the business as a whole, that it's not just being stuffed in a corner somewhere gathering dust. So instead of, hey, we'll give you a response back next week rolls around, the customer has no idea what's happening. They don't know if it's on track, off track. They're just like, oh, I guess I'll have to wait a week. What I prefer to do, especially for these larger accounts, newer customers, in order to improve their experience with the company, I would have proactive updates regularly scheduled between my milestones. So if I expect the project to be completed by next week, I would perhaps give 1, 2, or even 3, depending on the customer, mini updates over the course of that week in order to let them know that I'm still focusing on this. I'm still tracking what's going on. We're making sure that this is a priority for us to be delivered for you, Mr. Customer, and that we are going to do everything we can to make sure you have a positive experience.
That's awesome, Kyle. In the same vein of proactive follow-ups, I would say that one thing that we try to incorporate with our customer accounts is sending them our line card so that they know there are other products that we can provide to them if applicable. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. So this is a list of the industrial components, both rubber and plastic and miscellaneous that we sell to our customers. So we like to send this out to customers, and perhaps maybe they primarily buy grommets from us or O-rings or bushings or caps and tips or whatever, right? But they don't know that we provide maybe other products that they could also incorporate or use or sell as well. So this is something that we try to distribute every so often so that customers, they can look at it and go, oh, hey, I didn't know you sold, rubber mounts. This is great. Like I'll send in a request for quote and you can let me know how much it would be for however amount, right? So just going back to what you said about proactive follow-ups, just making sure that you're, staying on top of the relationship in terms of making sure the customer has the information that they need and that they feel that they're well equipped to reach out to you with any inquiries that they might have. Okay, next question. What strategies have you seen companies use to effectively train and empower their employees to deliver exceptional customer service?
Yeah, there's quite a few that I've seen over the past so many years now, especially between both in-person and remote companies. A lot of them include what a lot of people will be familiar with will be training videos, shadowing when applicable to see what a live customer interaction looks like or what to expect for the employee. One of my favorites is documentation, something that the new employee has to always reference back to if they need help and doesn't require the help of another employee internally. And of course, probably one of the biggest ones is having a lot of conversations with boundaries for the customer service team. This helps them understand how far they can go when they're interacting with a customer, what they can do, what they can't do, maybe what requires escalation, and gives them a lot of confidence from day one to be able to handle the interactions with the customers and feel prepared when going into answering a phone call, going through an order, an email, or what have you. I find that having that conversation goes a long way and is really critical by defining it very clearly.
Yes, very good. Very good. We highly prioritize employee development and training at Rubber Products Distributors. Every employee has a training matrix that we look at and make sure that they are properly trained on everything that is related to their job and their functions. And so within that training matrix, we refer to what we call standard operating procedures, which are documents that formally outline how to complete a process from start to finish. So I'm going to go ahead and share an example of that. This is an example of what we call internally an SOP, a standard operating procedure. And this one particularly is for storing documents in DocuWare, which is our document management system. Essentially, you see a lot of information at the top of the document. Basically, that header is on every single one. It tells you which departments it relates to, who controls the process, right? Who owns the process, when it was implemented, when it was last updated. This document in particular was just published last April, so it hasn't been reviewed or updated yet because the process hasn't changed. We still follow this process exactly the same. You can see it tells you what software to open, and then it's got sub steps, how to log in, right? It tells you, what every button you're supposed to click on looks like. For examples, right? If we want to provide an example of something, we have them highlighted in yellow. And then same thing for notes. Sometimes we might have notes listed underneath a step that say, hey, just an FYI, you might run into this, or this might be a best practice when you're following this procedure. And so then at the end of every document, we have a revision log, and basically that just summarizes what was modified or changed last time the document was revised. So we ask every employee to follow these procedures, and we train every single one of them accordingly. So it works out very well for us. Another thing I'd like to showcase is what we call controlled forms. It's similar to a standard operating procedure, but instead of outlining a process, it's more or less a supporting document that helps people when they're completing a process. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and kind of show what this looks like. So this is a controlled form that we use often called the International Address Guide. We have lots of international customers, as mentioned earlier, and the address format from one country to another doesn't always translate apples to apples. And so basically what this document does is it helps people when they're dealing with an international customer convert their address into our system appropriately, right? So P21 uses what's called the US postal format. And with the exception that there are country codes that are different than what the US postal format is. So it's a little bit tricky, but essentially you can look at the screen. There's an example of Brazil, right? How a Brazilian address would go into what our internal P21 address format is. And then it includes a table that just kind of has more information on like what the states are in Brazil and what their abbreviations are, right? So if someone was looking at an address and they weren't exactly sure, what the abbreviation meant, this kind of outlines it for them. So we have multiple countries on here. Not every country, obviously, because that would be a pretty long document, but essentially this list includes the most common countries that we do business with, right? So this document is used by our customer service reps, and we're glad we have it. And it's just another example of what you mentioned about empowering employees to do their job effectively. This is something that we've implemented to ensure that they can feel confident when they're dealing with international customer accounts. Can you share some insights on how technology and automation can enhance, rather than hinder, the customer service experience?
Going from different levels, of course, some companies operate a lot on, say, spreadsheets. You may be familiar with a lot of spreadsheets you may have seen in the past week or so, I'm sure. There's a lot of things you can do even with those, where you can go into Visual Basic and develop macros for common formatting that you may run into, or developing certain formulas just to quickly implement with just the click of a hotkey. And that can actually save you a lot of time if you're doing things very frequently over and over and over again. Another example is using macros for something like Zendesk, where there may be a common response or a common question you get from a customer, where you can quickly have a fully fleshed out answer for the customers, and it can save you a lot of time, especially if you're managing thousands of customers that may have similar questions. And then, of course, one of the big buzzwords that's been recent is AI. And I'm actually really excited to use AI in the industry, because this helps us actually create a force multiplier for the customer service team. It allows you to come up with more responses faster, or different ways to say different things, as opposed to thinking pen to paper, how can I say this response, or how can I create this macro? How can I create this outreach email? It's going to allow you to be incredibly more efficient by creating a lot of these options to choose from. But you have to keep in mind that this is actually not replacing anybody, because you still need a human touch to make sure that it makes sense with the responses and is tailored specifically to your customer and to your business.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Just to touch on what you mentioned about artificial intelligence, right? It is becoming increasingly more popular, and we try to utilize it within RPD as well. And in fact, I'd like to give a quick example of a case in which we did. Anybody can go to this URL. It's chat.openai.com. It's free to use. There is a premium version, but we actually just use the free version because it satisfies the needs of our company. We actually use ChatGPT to make that controlled form that we showed earlier, the international guide, right? So just as an example, I'm going to show you how it works. I have the address of a random noodle shop in Japan, and I'm going to go ahead and ask AI to convert that address from the Japanese format to the US postal format. So I'm going to go ahead and type it in. Can you please convert this address to US postal? As you can see, it went ahead and did it for me. That's how we would enter it into the US postal format, and that's how we would enter it into our system internally. The thing is, we use that technology to create the controlled form so people don't have to ask AI every single time. They can use the form to guide them through it. But kind of like what you alluded to, Kyle, essentially artificial intelligence has become essentially the next phase of what I would call like the search engine, right? Instead of searching something and fishing through articles looking for the information that you need, AI can go ahead and within seconds provide a clear example or a clear answer to whatever you're hoping to obtain. So it works out really well, and I would encourage people to look into all the different ways that you can utilize it within your organization, especially from a customer service perspective. Another example of technology that I'd like to showcase that we've used in our company too is Grammarly. You've probably seen their ads on YouTube or maybe on the sidebar of different articles, but I'll go ahead and showcase it real quick in case you haven't used it yet. So again, this is free to use. You just need to create an account. The URL is app.grammarly.com. And essentially what you can do is you can create documents in this hub, and within those documents, it'll check for grammar, punctuation, spelling, et cetera, et cetera. But I believe it uses kind of a variant of artificial intelligence technology. But essentially, if you type something, you could say, "Hello world, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for watching the RPD podcast." It'll go ahead and scan this. And as you can see, it kind of highlighted the thank you for watching the RPD podcast, because I believe it is trying to tell me that I need a semicolon or perhaps a comma here, right, to separate the sentence. And you can see the highlight went away, indicating that what I wrote was sufficient. But you could copy and paste a large amount of text within this document, and it would scan it for any spelling errors, any punctuation or grammar errors. And then what you can do is copy it from here, right? Select it all and copy it, and then paste it back into whatever document, email, or whatever the use is, to make sure that whatever you typed out is professional and appropriately written. That's OpenAI, ChatGPT, and that's Grammarly. And those are two resources that we've used within our company to optimize our customer service experience. And we would highly recommend that you guys check them out as well. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us today on the first episode of the RPD podcast. Everyone listening at home, we really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. In the meantime, if you would like to learn more about RPD and the products and services that we provide, you can visit our website, www.rpdcorp.com, or you can give us a call anytime, 317-883-6700. That's 317-883-6700. We would be happy to speak with you and learn more about how we can evolve our relationship and provide excellent customer service to you. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.